And here we are live. We are live. Can you believe it, folks? It's a new year, a new season here on the Spoiler Room. We're starting year 13. Can you believe it? 13
Lucky
years.
13. Crazy.
Lucky 13. It's our 20th year on YouTube this year, and it's our 13th year doing the podcasting. So yeah, like I said, I don't know when to quit. And so here we are, though we are starting off a new month, not just a new year. And this is Fantastically Dark month. Yes, that's right. We're looking at dark fantasy films. And very excited to bring you the slate of films we have this month. And we're starting off with one that has a strange connection. Well, not strange, but an interesting connection to two very popular sci-fi films in the form of Star Wars and Empire. And that is Dragonslayer, 1981 Dragonslayer. That's right. And tonight we've got a great crew with us. Well, a crew of one. I've got my right-hand man with me tonight. Joe and Scott Davis could not make it, unfortunately, so you are with us within spirit, guys. But Ian, my right-hand man, and he just keeps coming back for more. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm a little nervous though, because I was counting on there being a bigger panel so that I could hide, because my enthusiasm for Dragonslayer, let's just say it's not very high. So this will be fun. I can't wait for you to bring me into the cult of Dragonslayer so I can finally understand what it's all about.
Well, there we are, folks. That's a perfect setup for this. So thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and popping your favorite drink with us as we talk movie spoilers on a new year. And yes, Dragonslayer. Does that mean then you would like for me to do the synopsis for Dragonslayer, Ian?
Please do.
Wow. Okay, this will be an interesting conversation. Well, Dragonslayer, directed by Matthew Robbins. Let me get the character names up here because I'm always horrible at that. We have a group of folks who are searching a sorcerer named Ulrich. And Valerian leads this group, and they find the sorcerer Ulrich and his apprentice Galen. And they ask Ulrich that they need to dispatch of a dragon because their lord has made an agreement with said dragon that every year they sacrifice a virgin to the dragon, and the dragon won't destroy their homes and such. And so so that's what we have. And they Ulrich says, yeah, okay, we're gonna do it. Galen, he's coming along with me. And then the Lord's soldiers show up, and they're like, hey, we're going to stop you because they're doing the Lord's, the Lord of their land's work, and they don't want them to ruin this agreement they had with the dragon. And so the sorcerer's like, yeah, well, guess what? He does a little spell and says, here, strike me. And a la Obi-Wan Kenobi, he gets stabbed and poof, he ends up dead. And so Galen decides to take up the mission of taking on the dragon. So he travels with Valerian to the world, to their land, to fight said dragon. He pulls out his spell. He thinks the dragon is dispatched by collapsing the entire cave of the dragon onto it. And they have a celebration. And the Lord of the Lands does not like that, the king. So he calls upon Galen to show his powers, which of course didn't go so well. And lo and behold, the dragon isn't dead. And so now Galen is faced with trying to prove his worth and take out the dragon because he's fallen in love with Valerian, who turns out was posing as a boy, but is actually a female, because you see only females are sacrificed to the dragon. And her dad was hiding her, but she revealed herself because they thought the dragon was dead, but he wasn't. And so now Galen and Valerian try their best to figure out a way to dispatch this dragon as it's wreaking havoc across their country. And we throw in a subplot with a Princess Elspeth, who we find the king has left her name out of the lottery this whole time to protect her because she is also a virgin. And she decides to throw her name in the pot because she wants a fair, shake at possibly being killed. And she does that. And we'll get into it more as we go on. But let's just say it does not go well for the Princess Elspeth at all, in a surprising twist. All brought to you by Disney and Paramount, but Disney and Paramount co-production. This is back in the dark days of Disney. And that's my synopsis. It's not the best synopsis, but that's the one you get. So, I mean, it's better than the one that you get on IMDb, which basically young wizarding apprentice sent to kill dragon has been devouring girls for nearby kingdom. And that's, that's it. But that's, yeah.
It's not that synopsis. The way you read it sounds like the apprentice is going around eating.
It does, girls. Doesn't it? They need some grammar work in there. But
yeah, but the adult version is right there. It's Dragonslayer. Which, full disclosure, I thought that Dragonslayer had something to do with Dragon's Lair, the 1984 Don Bluth video game. Yes. They even have like almost the same kind of like logo and everything. So imagine my surprise when there are no cartoons in this movie. Wow.
No, there isn't, but there's some other things that you may not expect from a Disney film.
But again, basketball sensation Caitlin Clark. When I saw her name pop up in the credits, I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." No,
wrong Caitlin Clark there.
But imagine how much more awesome this movie would have been if they'd had WNBA sensation Caitlin Clark.
It would have been interesting. That's for the remake, just so that they could get all meta on her. But
like they did with Anaconda or something. I don't know.
So you didn't enjoy this film? I'm assuming this was the first time you've watched this movie.
It was. No, I did not enjoy it at all. I gotta say, I was impressed by the special effects. I mean, when the dragon shows up, like almost literally at the end of the movie, we finally get to see it. We get little kind of glimpses at it. It's very Jaws in that way, and it's very cool. There are a couple of, I think, really great scenes here, but the Star Wars connection is apt because I like Peter McNichol as an actor, but I couldn't not see him as Mark Hamill with that flowing golden hair, and he's kind of like I don't know if I'm ready for this big adventure, and it's unfair because I've seen, almost 50 or 45 years of other movies that have done this and kind of done it better in the interim. So this is 1981. This is a couple years before Crawl, before a lot of other movies that I actually do enjoy. I feel like my personal opinion is this is hey, let's try out this not very good movie with some great special effects, and we'll just kind of like lay the track for other people to kind of improve on it and make it better years later. I mean, the scene there is a Balrog Gandalf scene at the end of this movie. But I again, that movie was 20, Lord of the Rings was 20 years off from when this thing came out, but I couldn't watch it, this being my first time through, without seeing all the other movies that I've seen this in. So it's almost hard for me to evaluate Dragonslayer on its own merits, except that I just found it to be really boring. The whole movie feels like it's the lead up to the beginning of the film. Like there's no real inciting incident. Really, it's like I'm like, oh, I guess this is the story now. Okay.
Look, I watched this a couple of times. In fact, I had forgotten I had watched this when I was younger. Because I hadn't watched it often, but I did see it when I was younger, because I've always wondered why I always stuck when I play like fantasy games, and that why I've used a variation of like Valeria or Valerian a lot of times if it's a female character, and I'm like,
as far as the name,
yeah, the name goes, and I'm like, huh, and then I watch this, I'm like, oh yeah, that's where it came from. So it's funny you mentioned that. It's funny you were talking about that because the film wasn't received well. This film was a $15 million budget back in 1981. and it only made 13 million at the box office. It was not looked upon well by fans in that, but again, I think you kind of hit it, is that this is just a year before Conan. This is a year before the fantasy thing kind of took off. And I can see your perspective of where you feel, with it, because this is one of those films, and it's kind of why I wanted to talk about it, was if you talk to guys like J.R.R., if you talk about, Martin, if you talk to George Martin, you talk to George Martin, Guillermo del Toro, you talk to some of these guys who have done fantasy stuff, this movie, they enjoy various aspects of it quite a bit, because in all honesty, to the scope that they did, this wasn't really done with fantasy before. I mean, you had your Harryhausen stop motion stuff, but the scale and scope that they do things as far as with the environments and such, and when you do get to the dragon, it's impressive what they do with the dragon. It's really cool. But the reason, and that's where it's kind of gained its cult following, is not so much the story itself. In fact, our main actor who plays Galen, Peter McNichol, hated this movie. He hates this movie. According to trivia, he left it off of his resume.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, apparently so. He did not like this movie. Me watching it again, like I said, various angles. I like all the technical aspects. I like the environment, the story itself. Yeah, it is pretty basic. It is pretty straightforward. Your standard fantasy stuff that had been done at least many times before. Visually, though, what they do here in this film, as far as the dragon and everything goes, was pretty breakthrough stuff, new stuff. But that's because they got ILM. And I just started watching, there's an online, it's called DVD Extras. I'm going to plug them because they've got a film that I discovered too late. I didn't get a chance to watch all of it before here, but they go through the behind the scenes stuff and they show the really cool things. And the reason they got ILM was because they had just finished up on Empire. Well, they were working on Empire. They were finishing up Empire, but they were getting to the end of working on Empire, the ILM guys, and they weren't sure Lucas was going to do a third film right away. So if he was going to do a third film, they needed some time filler. They needed a job in between movies, basically. ILM did, and so they came along with Dragonslayer. So they got a lot of the ILM guy. I mean, the big name Dennis Muren, Phil Tippett, they got the big name guys from ILM to work on Dragonslayer, and you can see that because even if the script is a bit wafer thin, which they whipped together fairly quickly, the screenwriters admit it in the BTS stuff. The visually, this film is just like, wow. for 81, it's pretty impressive.
It is. And I think, it's also, you're talking about the dark Disney. I mean, spoiler alert, what happens to the princess when Galen discovers her body and literally they have eaten one of her feet off, the little, like she's kind of swarmed by the baby dragons in the lair. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, partially because I didn't expect Galen to end up with the princess because he was very much into Valerian, but I didn't expect the princess to die.
And that's a surprise because the way they built this up is Princess Elspeth suddenly discovers the secret her dad's been keeping from her, that she's actually been left out of the lottery, even though she's a female virgin and should qualify. So, they build up this whole little subplot where she threw her name, where every tag in the lottery that they're going to draw has her name on it because they pissed off the dragon trying to kill him. So now they're going to have another lottery say, hey, feed her an extra virgin this year. So she rigs the lottery. And so when Galen shows up to rescue her, he starts fighting the main soldier guy who had also killed the sorcerer Ulrich. Tyrion, I think it was, wasn't it? his name, I think.
Yeah, and again, you talking about George R.R. Martin.
Right, right. So Tyrion, the main guard,
Is Tyrion Bannister, I think his name was.
no,
No, totally different character.
wow. He's fighting Galen, and the princess. Our guy saves the princess because he's got a mega dragon killing spear that also cuts through all metal, and frees her. But instead of her running, she goes into the cave, and yeah, they're fighting, and you're like, oh, okay, she's gonna go in there. Dragon's gonna grab her, and then our guy Galen's gonna rescue her. And you hear a scream, and you're like, okay, he dispatches our Tyrion, and actually a very cool fight. I like that fight as well, the action sequence.
Sidebar on the fight.
Yeah,
it was okay. It just looked ridiculous where Tyrion has a sword, and then Galen has his giant spear. It's like going into a duel with a shotgun. It's just like no, this is the wrong weapon.
Oh no, I know. No, I fully get that. But I mean, for the rest of the movie, it's fine. It's interesting. I like how he dispatches him by stabbing him through the post. It's like, okay, he actually thought of that.
But here's the thing: Tyrion's a smart guy. Why is he leaning up against this wood post as if it's going to protect him? And he knows the guy has the spear like aimed right at his chest. He's
not that knowledgeable. No, just kidding. I don't know. In any case, it was.
I consider it was a cool death, but just the setup of it had to be a bit more like pretty lame. You can't be this much of an idiot. But yeah, it was nice.
But the big thing was what you mentioned is because the way they built it, you're like, oh, okay, he's going to rescue the princess. Because the way this usually goes is princess there, he rescues the princess, but and then you'll have Valerian get jealous, but then at the very end, no, you're the only one for me, and they go off and yada yada, and the princess yells at her king dad and takes over, whatever. Usually that happy ending, and it's Disney, so yeah, that's the way it's gonna. No, yeah, she gets munched like dead. Like at first the body's laying there, and you're like, oh, well, maybe she's just got him on top of her, and she's, they got to fight him. No, they're gnawing on her neck already halfway in. They're through the first course of the meal. By the time Galen gets it, what I love about that is Galen comes up to it, he looks at it, he goes, ugh. Yeah. He kills the baby dragons, and he just looks like, oh well, and he goes out to kill. I mean, he doesn't really shed a tear. But I'm saying, usually in the formula, you'd have like a dramatic moment where he like lift her head or she say some final words or something. But he just like, well, that happened, and he just keeps.
And that's look. I'm gonna give this movie a hard time for the rest of the conversation, but I will say, I think this is something, especially because all these notable filmmakers you mentioned kind of appreciate and were inspired by this movie. I could see a remake of Dragonslayer, but just punching up the script a bit, because I really do like this idea of the not quite a love triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're saying, Galen, he's interested in saving the princess, but he's not butthurt about it when he discovers that she's dead. He's like, well, I guess I'll go try and finish off this dragon business and get back to the girl I actually care about. That's not something you see usually. It's usually a love triangle, or like you said, a jealousy kind of thing, something. There's some cool ideas in this movie. It's just that they're very, very deep.
Oh, they are. And, again, I understand the reaction you might have, because ideas here and things that were done are done better later on. And having watched those, you go back to this one, you're like, man, this is kind of, but there are fits and spurts and things that you can see where the inspiration was. And yeah, I just thought it was a bold move that they killed the princess. And he's like, yeah, okay. It's also, this is the first Disney film to have male nudity in it. Briefly, we have our male Galen when he discovers that Valerian is not a boy. Because up until this
first one, was this the first Disney movie to have female nudity in it?
It might have been, or the second one, like for sure, because Galen, Valerian, up until one point in the film, as Galen decides to join them because his buddy Ulrich is dead, he's going to be the sorcerer to take down the dragon. As they're traveling, of course, they make a pit stop for the night, and Valerian goes off by themselves to take a bath. He's like, okay. Well, Galen being Galen, he's like, yeah, okay, you know what? I want to take a bath too. And he's like, oh, hey, how you doing? And Valerian's like, no, don't come in here. I'm going to take this bath. No, don't come in. So he whips off his clothes, and in full camera, he decides to dive into the water, and you get a brief glimpse of, his bait and tackle, so to speak.
McNichols Peter, as it was.
McNichols Peter, as he dives in the water and finds out that that Valerian is a female by the underwater shot of you get full naked side boob of Valerian. You're like, go Disney. It's like, holy crap.
Now, help me clear something up for me.
Yeah.
Later in the film, I may be misremembering this, but I thought there was a line where Galen says to Valerian, like, yeah, I always knew you were a woman, or you never.
I always suspected you were female. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. But that underwater reaction when he comes up upon her in her full glory seemed pretty surprised to me. Now, maybe he'd never seen it in person. It was only in like etchings and dusty old books or something. But I'm like, that's either he was lying to her later, or I don't know what was going on.
I think he was lying to her later is what it was, is that he was, it's like, oh yeah, no, I figured you were a girl the whole time. He's like, no, you probably didn't, but you were probably wondering why you were looking at Valerian and going, I've got odd feelings right now.
She looked awfully. She looked like, I don't remember the actress's name, but that movie, Just One of the Guys.
Yes.
They came out a few years later with the girls undercover in high school. Look, they could have been sisters or brothers or something.
She reminded me a lot of the way she looked. Yeah, she could have definitely been sisters if it was in the modern time or whatnot. But yeah, so it's interesting to see that. And, it's funny because they do take from some actual real stories of how fathers would try to hide their daughters, depending, and have them pose as men or boys to protect them from nefarious things happening in that. And the thing is, what's funny is you're also talking like medieval times, so you could get away with a name like Valerian, and it could be for a boy or a girl.
Yeah,
you're like, oh, okay. So they didn't have to change the name,
And this Valerian was much more interesting than that that Valerian movie that came out a few years ago. Remember that? That was the Luc Besson thing.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah,
the Valerian of the Thousand Worlds or whatever it was. Yeah.
Oh. But no, it's interesting because this movie, it's 1980. They're working on it. Came out in 81. This is still like, it's post Star Wars, but it's also still very much post Vietnam. So there's that idea of the lottery, aka the kind of the draft, and the sons, and well, mostly sons in the case of Vietnam, but the children of the rich and powerful being sheltered from the bad experiences of having to go off to war or to be sacrificed. I mean, literally sacrificed. The metaphor is right there on the page. But it was funny because the king, when he comes out, he's shocked to see that his daughter's name is in there. He's like, oh, the guy who read that, he mispronounced the name, so I'm just gonna come out and read it. I'm like, okay.
And everybody's just blinking at him like, nobody believes the king. And he's like, no, that he must have read it. I love how he set it up too. He's like, and the name on this tag, which is really hard to read.
And the daughter, she's like, no, Dad, it's my name. And he's like, shut the fuck up. What are you doing?
Well, the daughter's even looking at him like, really? You're going to try this? Really?
Well, he probably thought I'm the king. So I making up the excuse is, that's, I don't even have to do that. I could just tell all you people to go to hell and pick another name. But yeah, it's, again, there's some fun, cool stuff here. I want to talk about a great visual moment. Later on, we see a priest played by Ian McDiarmid, who would go on to appear as the Emperor in what? Star Wars 3.
Yes.
Um,
Return of the Jedi. Yes.
yes. Sorry. Jedi, not Revenge of the Sith.
No. No.
Old school Star Wars 3.
Yes. The first three. The first three.
The OG.
The OG.
But no, last week I talked about Boogie Nights on my year-end live stream. And there's that scene with Don Cheadle going into the donut shop, and he's wearing an all-white suit. And the reason he's wearing that all-white suit partially is because when all the brains get splattered all over him, there's that beautiful contrast. In Dragonslayer, when Ian McDiarmid shows up, yes, he's in kind of like a white ceremonial robe. But to me, the white suit was his hair, because he's got like these bozo tufts of like big curly blonde hair. And I didn't realize that Ian McDiarmid was a blonde, first of all. I think he might have had it in episode 1, but it was more kind of like grayish.
It was gray by that time because he was older. So he was it was more white. Yeah.
But when I think the reason they did that was because when the dragon comes up out of the pit, and that wonderful shot of him blowing the fireball at the priest, you see that as a very quick shot, but it's just like almost like a cartoon. Ian McDiarmid's head charred black, completely bald, and all the hair is gone.
Yeah. Well, it's a great camera shot too, because the fire and everything, it's in camera. They blow the fire at the head. Obviously it's a mannequin, but they blow it at, and you watch the hair evaporate and the head get engulfed in fire. And that's the thing. And I think that's why this film has developed the cult following, is not so much the story itself, but it's all the technical and camera stuff and the production aspects of this film that are fascinating, because there's some wonderful matte paintings in here. I mean, watching this, it sat there, and I had that old man voice, but I think it fits. I was like, this really makes you miss excessive practical effects in fantasy movies, and that, because you watch it here, most of this is, nearly all of it's practical. There is very little like animated anything. There is some animated dragon, but this movie is where they invented the go motion, as it was called, that ILM would use later in stuff, including, I think, Return of the Jedi for the Rancor monster. I think they used go motion for that rather than stop motion.
Explain that.
So go motion, so stop motion. And I read up on this because I was like, okay, I had heard the term before when I saw some, behind the scenes stuff for Return of the Jedi. But the reason they call it go motion is because with stop motion, you would have to, you've got the model, you take the frame, you'd move the model, you take the frame, you move the model. With go motion, basically they hooked up rods and a computer and motors, and what it would do is you could tell the program how you would want the thing to move, and it would move while the film's exposed. So it's basically running the film and moving basically at the same time versus doing the stop, and it created a more smooth effect, because the thing with stop motion is you could tell it's stop motion because you get the stutter effect, just a slight, because it's literally still image upon still image. And with go motion, it's a fluid image because it's basically moving right with the camera. And they invented that while making this movie so that they could make the dragon look really good.
It's funny you mention that, because earlier, I guess last summer now, summer 2025, they came out the remake of How to Train Your Dragon, the live action one. And, it's fine. It's as a technical achievement or technical exercise. But I'm like, I've seen this movie. I saw the DreamWorks animated version from 15 years earlier. But I was thinking about that watching Dragonslayer, because in both cases of the animated DreamWorks version and this movie, I got the feeling that these people were really trying to do something new and inventive.
Right.
With the live action version, it's just like everything else. It's like, I mean, I know there's technical artistry and skill involved, but it's just, it feels easy.
Mhm.
Watching something that's like, early computer animation, or in this case, early go motion, and incorporation of live action elements into, animated special effects, it helps with the immersion somehow. It's like, I don't
Mhm.
know how I'm watching this. Whereas you watch any blockbuster nowadays, like, I know exactly how this is all done. It's all, render
Mhm.
farms and people on green screen and all this other stuff.
And that's what is with this, because they knew, hey, we're calling the movie Dragonslayer. We can only get along so far with having people look off camera and go, "Oh, look, the dragon!" They're like, we're gonna have to show it. So you do get glimpses of the dragon right in the opening when we first get the first sacrifice. They built an actual tail. They built an actual leg of the dragon. They built a 16-foot long animatronic neck for the dragon, and the dragon looks fantastic. I think it was Guillermo del Toro that said that this is his favorite dragon that was designed. And it's funny because if you look at this dragon and look at all the dragon designs after this, people pulled from this sucker. Just like the Dragonslayer font, they created that for this movie, and it used everywhere in fantasy stuff after this. So, I mean, as far as a fantasy geek goes, this is one of those granddaddy films to where, yeah, it itself, the story as a whole, isn't great, but the stuff that it contributed that influenced so many people afterwards is amazing, because that's part of the motivation for them wanting to make a Dragon Slayer movie was the rising popularity of a small game for tabletop role playing called Dungeons and Dragons.
It's I kind of alluded to this at the beginning of the show,
Mhm.
and you're kind of getting into this now. But one of the things we do all the time on this show and on my podcast is particularly when a movie isn't working for us, is we say, wouldn't it have been better if they just did this? Or wouldn't it have made more sense if the story went off in that direction or followed this character or this,
Mhm.
sideline? I feel like a lot of fantasy filmmakers did that with this movie. They're like, it looks great. We can innovate on this and that, but I've got a much better story to tell. I want to play in this sandbox though, so I'm going to steal this and this and this. And they made, memorable. Dragon Slayer is a memorable and iconic movie, but again, I think it's for what it allowed other people to do instead of
Mhm.
it being. It's not like Star Wars. Everyone ripped off Star Wars, and they're still ripping off Star
Star
Wars,
Wars.
but it still stands alone as an excellent, entertaining,
Right.
and cutting edge movie.
Mhm. Yeah. And this one, again, you've seen pretty much all of these elements before. And as we mentioned, there is a heavy, not just ILM connection, but there is some heavy story elements in here that, and I know Star Wars borrowed from it from previous, but it's really, considering when this comes out, it's like, wow, man, old man sacrifices himself, who, to put even more of a point, so Ulrich sacrificed himself. He knew he couldn't make the journey. So we find out later that Ulrich actually had the guy kill him so that he could burn, because they cremate his body. They take their ashes with them on the trip. His old caretaker does. And then he's got to distribute the ashes in the water where there's fire, which, go and figure, is in the dragon's lair. And later, sure enough, we use the ash to create a ghost of Ulrich. Well, he's corporeal, but very limited, by throwing his ashes into the water, a la, Obi-Wan Force Ghost, who comes out and helps them defeat the dragon in the end, basically. Um,
You know, that's the thing, and that was taken from. I mean, that kind of idea was taken from Lord of the Rings with Gandalf the White. I
right.
mean, the
Yep.
the, the books, right? But with the books, at least they had that happen early enough on in the three book series
Right.
that when Gandalf the White reemerges much later on, you're like, oh my God, that's crazy. Here, it's an hour and 40-minute movie, and then the Ulrich comes back and like immediately says, okay, now I'm gonna go off to die. Like, what? And there's that whole thing. I couldn't have made the journey. Like, I don't understand any of the magic rules in this film. I don't feel like anything has been established. Like, why can you do this, but you can't do that? And why couldn't you have done this earlier if you can do it now? I don't get it. But You know, it's mostly
No,
about the
there's, I
dragons.
mean, there's a lot of that in films like this, but especially here, yeah, they didn't establish too many magic rules in here at all, the magic. But I did like the angle that they took on this about the fading of magic. There's this underlying theme in here about how the days of fantasy, of dragons, of sorcerers is fading in light of the rise of Christianity.
And that we talked about that in one of our Merlin films
Right.
last
Yeah.
year. Which one was
Excalibur.
that? Excalibur.
I think it was
Yeah.
Excalibur. Yeah.
When did that was that was the 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah. Excalibur, I think, was the 70s.
Yeah.
Um,
So again, I thought that was I'm having deja vu because you're describing
right.
it to me like, yeah, but we talked about that in the context of a really good movie who knew what to do with that storyline.
And no, but it was just interesting to see them take that angle here because you're watching this and all of a sudden they're talking about uh, Christianity and Christ, and you're like, oh, okay. In fact, those are the guys that are out there sacrificing this virgins to the dragon. Are the Christian guys? They ordained it. And what's funny is Valerian's dad would later, as the film goes on, he gets baptized and he becomes a priest, a preacher at the end. But it's so abrupt. It's so abrupt. It's like they don't, it's like they had this extra storyline. And I think online there are deleted scenes in here because when Valerian and Galen decide to go out and finally dispatch the dragon, her dad's left back and he's kind of worried about his daughter, and the priest of the village shows up, and in between them getting ready to fight the dragon and go through the caves, we see a cutscene of the dad getting baptized, and all of a sudden the dad has a staff later on, and suddenly he's leading a flock of people, and he's talking about at the end of this movie he's leading, and they're all praying, and I'm like, when did he convert? I'm like, wow, that was quick. And yeah, and there's other bits and pieces in here that are interesting. Like so we'll back up. So in the main fight with the dragon, which looked really good, by the way, you've got Ulrich and the dragon fighting, and Galen's there helping. And there's this little amulet this whole time Galen's been carrying. It's got a crystal that he uses for his magic power to focus through. And Ulrich, who comes back from the dead, Ulrich the White, goes, hey, you'll know it, but at a certain time you'll want to destroy this amulet. He's like, oh, okay. So then Ulrich is balrogging, he goes up there and he does, and this is the bad thing because it was Disney. I love Fantasia. Ulrich literally does the Sorcerer's Apprentice thing from Fantasia. He gets up on the mountain, he's like, lightning and clouds and water, and he's just like, you borrowing from something?
Well, it's Disney's IP. They can do what they want with it.
True.
But,
Well, and apparently, according to what I was reading up too, they drew influences for Galen from Mickey Mouse's Sorcerer's Apprentice. For the Galen character, because his magic never quite goes right for most of the film. He tries it, like when he tries to collapse the cave opening for the dragon, he takes down half the mountain.
yeah, I don't know. That was the other kind of thing is I couldn't tell what tone this movie was trying to take with that character, because I know with the assistant, he like strips him naked, and there's like this whole there's these little bits of wackiness that don't quite mesh with this. You can't have like a wacky, oh, I'm gonna strip this guy naked and put his clothes back on in this, and 40 minutes later, oh, there's someone a princess whose limbs have been gnawed off by baby dragons.
Or even before that, when they hook up with Valerian's group and they're traveling, the King Rex's knight, Tyrion, decides to kill the servant who's come along. That's where we get the whole Ash scene, which is actually played really well, because our guy Galen has this vision of the future through his power, and he sees his the caretaker, the basically butler guy get killed. He's like, oh no. And so he finds the guy, and the guy's just walking, and the way the camera it handles it really well, because he's just walking and kind of slowly, and then Galen comes up to him and he turns around, he's got an arrow shoved right in him, but it's not given right away. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. That was handled fairly well. But you're right about the tone, because not only do you have the clothes being removed or whatnot, but then after Galen brought down the mountain and the king wants to see Galen, Galen tries to show his demonstration of power, and obviously it doesn't work. The most he can do is bring a chicken up here and tip over a table. So you have that, and even before that, you had when Valerian and her group show up to find Ulrich. He throws on a robe and he goes, does this look menacing enough? And then he comes out and they do this little drum gimmick before he comes out, and you're just like, wow, dude. You just know but I mean, it's done as like a humorous thing. And then, yeah, you get these other bits where it's dark, where Ulrich throws himself basically on a dagger, like a few scenes later. The tone of this film is crazy. You're not quite sure with it. And the score from Alex North, which, yes, I'm plugging my special edition LPs that I have in the back there, is very interesting, because a lot of the music, and if you watch the movie, you can really tell a lot of the music doesn't necessarily go with the action of the movie. It's like almost like a temp track of sort. There's some of it that goes with it, but some of it, it's this noise, these layers of instruments, but it's not really going with what's actually happening. It's like just accompanying it. It's not like cartooning it, which can work, but it's just so abrupt. But that's probably because some of the score used here was Alex North's rejected score for 2001.
Really?
Yeah, some of the music, one of the pieces in here, I think it's the initial opening piece or whatever. It was actually music that he had wrote for 2001 that didn't get used because they rejected his score. As if you are a soundtrack head at all, folks, they used temp score of the planets, and they loved it so much that's what they stuck with. But but Alex North did score it and just didn't. So he used some of that music in this movie.
Well, way to hold on to some samples, man, because that was like 15 years earlier.
Well, I mean, papers. It wasn't samples. He wrote it. It's not like actual audio. He just wrote the music, but
Oh, sorry. I was thinking of like going like to the full composure stage, and then it was rejected or something.
Oh no, well, he did, but they didn't use the same audio. They recorded it, but different. But it was the same music he wrote for it. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. But you can tell because in some scenes the music does work, and the other scenes it doesn't quite fit. You're like, why is this so energetic? And there's not a whole lot of things happening right now.
I didn't notice because I was probably checked out a bit. But. Yeah, but now that I know that, damn it, Mark, someday I'm going to watch this movie again. I could kind of put this into the. I've seen it now. I never have to engage with it again, but now I kind of have to because I'm going to look out for that score.
Yeah, but and I've been holding off on it till now. I mean, everybody's performances here is fine. This is the first film of Caitlin Clark, who would go on to be in a number of large films, including she was in the Northern Exposure, and she definitely. But this was her first movie. We know Peter McNichol was in a lot of fun roles in that. It's sad that he didn't enjoy this one because he plays it well at least. But this was his first film.
Really? Was this his debut? Huh?
This is his debut. He'd go from here to doing Sophie's Choice, and then most people probably know him from Ghostbusters 2. Why am I all drippings with goo?
I'm sorry. Most people know him from Ally McBeal. Sorry.
Okay, well,
Um,
Allie, I'm old.
I know.
Ghostbusters 2, man. Give me that Ally McBeal. Yes, I know Ally McBeal, but when you saw him in Ally McBeal, you go, oh, that's the guy from Ghostbusters 2. See? So,
Fair
okay.
enough. Yes, fair enough.
Leapfrog there,
Oh boy.
But and I was kind of saving it to the end. So I mean, the actors and everybody, they do fine in here. Story's basic, but the visual aspects, the dragon in here, I will say, is damn impressive. The way it looks, the behavior of some of it, just what they do with this, how much was practical. I mean, that the D&D and fantasy guy in me loves the dragon.
Even more so than the dragon. And I think they do a good job of, I mean, especially the scenes where it's flying and kind of firebombing the village, that looks
Yeah.
really good. But to me, what was the most impressive, even beyond when you see it kind of in its full glory, is the fireball attacks on um,
Galen.
Galen. Sorry, I want to
Mhm.
say Valerian,
No.
but no, the fireball attacks on Galen where he's got the shield up and he's hiding behind the shield, but it's like the fire coming down and just like everything appears to be on fire, but you can tell all what's going on. I'm like, I don't. How did they not do this with with CGI? It's just so damn cool looking. I gotta watch that behind the scenes thing that you posted up or that you shared. And you should probably, if you can, link that in the description for
I'll
this
put
show.
yeah, after the stream, I'll put a link to it in the body description because I think it's very eye-opening because they do focus a lot on the technical aspects because again, that's what this thing has really gained its cult following for. They built the 16-foot long neck and head. They built a wingspan. They built a leg. They built the tails. They show that in here. These aren't CGI. These aren't claymation. They've got various sized models, obviously, for the different type. I guess they used 16 different dragon models,
Hmm.
but it's supposed to be a 40-foot dragon. And while they didn't build the whole dragon at once, it's made in pieces. And there is like you said, a wonderful shot from behind when we finally see the dragon in its full glory behind Galen with the head reared up and it's brings its wings out, and with it being practical, it looks like a dragon. You're like, that looks so damn cool, because it's got weight, it's got texture, shadow, everything. It's there,
And I'm not up on my dragon design lore or history, but I love you can see the finger wings, the kind of like the
Mhm.
bat wings. It reminded me of the vampire bat design from the Monster Squad with Dracula. So I don't know if that was a first here or if this is kind of like improved upon from some earlier kind of concept from another movie or fantasy illustration or
Um,
something, but it just looked it all looked really well thought out. Like if
mhm.
this creature existed, here's what it would look like and here's what it can do. Because yeah, there's that tense scene with the fireball exchange and everything it's it is the reason to watch this movie.
It is waiting to get to see the dragon. You get bits and pieces at the beginning. I mean, I'm trying to imagine folks, okay, we're watching a dragon movie, and in the very beginning, you get this big dragon tail. You've got this claw that actually picks up a person, a la like King Kong and Fay Ray. The legs of the dragon, you can actually see it pushes into the mud and everything. So it was impressive. And then when you get to see the full thing and it's all its glory at the end, it's amazing. And the wingspan, you're mentioning it, it may have been done before, not necessarily with a dragon, but they talk about the design and how they did that on purpose because they didn't want a dinosaur with wings because that had been done before. They wanted to feel a little more natural. So that's what they did. They actually incorporated the hands and arms into the wings itself to make it feel a little more natural. And it works. And I mean, this dragon design for sure, you see it later on in a lot of fantasy stuff. for
Well, one thing I almost forgot it, but I want to
Mm,
rewind back to that first encounter with the dragon because it's
yeah.
during a virgin sacrifice scene. What I thought was even more impressive than the way they show the dragon or kind of like
Mhm.
hide it, show like little bits of it, is the actress. I don't know who she is, but she was the virgin who was kind of manacled, and just they tied her up. She was, shackled to this post or whatever, and then everyone kind of hightailed it out of there, except for this one horse who couldn't quite get away. But she is trying to get out of these iron cuffs, and it's like something out of Saw.
Mhm.
I mean, she actually breaks free, but, like, her wrists are all bloody and scraped up. I mean, it's something that I'm gonna think about for the rest of my life probably, because just watching it, it hurts. I know it's all done with makeup and everything, but you really get the actress puts everything she has into making it look like she's trying. It looks like they put her in this outfit, and then they broke for lunch, and then they forgot to get her, and she was left overnight. She's like, "I have to get out of these chains."
You know, she sells it well. It's a hell of a introduction in our dragon. We get this wonderful shot of just the fingers coming out of the cave, and you only see the tail and the leg and the hand and everything. And yeah, and she sells it though. It's kind of like the victim. Here's where else they borrow from Jaws.
Yeah.
It's basically, how do you establish your character, your big bad monster villain, without actually showing all of your big bad monster? Well, you have someone who's being attacked or going to be the victim sell the shit out of that scene.
And the camera work, because when she finally buys it, you can see the camera is the dragon's point of view, and it kinda cranes up
Mhm.
and back, but it's not just a straight pull out, it's almost like the arc of a long neck moving
Right.
up,
Yeah.
and I swear I may be misremembering it, but I feel like before the giant fireball comes out, the camera almost, like, rears back as if the dragon is
Yep.
inhaling and then exhaling the fireball, and then she's just gone.
Yeah, it does. It does. The cinematography work on this is, that's what I was saying, like the matte stuff and all the stuff they were doing is impressive. There's and it comes up in that behind the scenes video. Like I said, it was very cool. Watching that, I'm like, yeah, I enjoyed this film, in all honesty. I'm not really caring to care about the story or the characters, but I love all the technical aspects of this movie, you know. And yeah, the same director of photography on this one was the same director of photography on Alien. So
Really?
yeah, so the main director of photography did both of them. It was Derek Van Lint, and he
Wow.
did Dragonslayer, and before this he did Alien. So I mean, it's one of those films, and that's why it has, I think, such the cult following that it does, is the fact that you look at all the people involved behind the scenes on this movie, and it's insane the amount of talent and stuff production wise they had behind the scenes for this. These guys who became big names with Star Wars and they would just grow in their popularity and that. And to see them getting to play with the fantasy world is what's enjoyable to me, because yeah, I mean, there's a scene where Galen has his spear of destiny, basically, and he's waiting for the dragon to come out. Now, they built this wonderfully painted, designed 16-foot long head and neck of a dragon. And here is where the difference, and yes, I'll yell at clouds and get off my lawn, but the difference between CGI monster and practical is, he actually, the actor or stuntman, actually jumps onto an actual neck that looks like the actual dragon, and he's stabbing into it, and it just gives this little bit extra element of realism, to where you're not like, oh, that's a good effect. You're like, dude's on a dragon. Dude's killing a dragon. Whereas just recently, Avatar, he hopped on a CGI bird. Oh, look at that. Or he's hopped on, you can tell as good as it is, it's still got that little hint of like, yeah, no, that's anime. Whereas here, no, it's real, it's touchy, it's visceral, and that dragon looked really cool. And so when he's riding it like a bronco bull, like one of those bull machines, it looks better. It just plays
It
better.
does, and it has that effect of what I like to call, sometimes this happens to me, very rarely, but when it does, it's magical. is the sensation of how am I seeing what I'm seeing?
Mhm.
Where you don't know how they pulled it off, and it's a magic trick. You know that somehow it has to be like, oh, it's an actor jumping onto a 16-foot long, fake neck. But even that's impressive because, like, wait, that it's an actor jumping onto a 16-foot long neck that someone built for him, and not like sliding off. But it's great. Again, nothing against. I have a lot against the Avatar movies.
Yeah, I
but
know.
but it is that thing where you aside from the first one, which definitely had some, again, innovation and like the little fireflies that would come dance out at you in the 3D
Yeah.
and stuff like that, environmental immersion was something special. But here we are 15 years later and 3 movies in, it's like, I'm just watching the first movie
Mhm.
again. What new do you have for me? And there's a lot of new stuff. Even though it's old stuff, it feels new in Dragonslayer.
Right. And that's the thing is you notice it. You go from watching so much stuff now that for various reasons. I'm not saying, look, I'm not against CGI by any means. I'm just saying that you don't realize what you're missing exactly until you watch a film like Dragon Slayer, to where, sure, other aspects you're like, but when he's fighting a dragon, when you see the dragon rear up in the cave and get to see it spread its wings, when you see all that, it just has a little bit of a different effect on you visually that you're just like, damn, that's freaking impressive. Like the Lake of Fire. Nowadays, they would have just CGI'd the fire on it. No, in the Lake of Fire, they had gas tubes that came up that would blow gas up. And then when you light it, it just let nature do its own thing. And the gas floating along the edge of the water would light up and create your actual, Lake of Fire.
Yeah. They don't make them like they used to, that's what they say.
No, I mean, as far as technical aspects, and again, I understand budget and everything. I have nothing against CGI use in films. I completely understand. But also there is just that tinge of, man, I miss those days of practical effects when you watch a movie where it's 90% practical effects. I mean, more than that, actually. I mean, there's only a few animations, but even the animations are composited models against a blue screen, but they have an actual model of it. It's not like drawn.
Well, it's also, what they do. I mean, you said this was a $15 million budget. I mean,
Right.
back in 1981, that's still pretty considerable. But what you get with that budget is it's not exactly a special effects movie. It's a movie that has some great special effects in it.
Right.
But if you look at Avatar, it's $300 million because every moment you're in some
Mhm.
kind of a scene that involves CG rendering to various degrees. Here, you've got scenes of like, oh, we had to build the dungeon set for this conversation between Galen and the princess, or you had to hire some extras and put them into like a king's court. You really spare your bullets so that when the dragon shows up, it's a contrast to what you've been seeing. You're not like, oh great, it's another CGI monster. It's that I've seen 16 of these in the last 2 hours. You're like, wow. And the other thing is, and maybe this is in the behind the scenes stuff, I don't know if the big showcase monster
Mhm.
dragon moment at the end was the giant beast that you mentioned that they created, or if it was done in like stop motion, because there's a lot going on with the wings and the articulation. So I can imagine that being miniatures or something, but it doesn't
Right.
look like miniatures. It
Mhm.
looks like a freaking huge dragon.
And it is. It's different. It's the different models. It's one of the 16 models that they did. They had guys, in charge of different aspects for the dragon, either the go motion stuff through the cave or the flying guy. The guy who was in charge of the flying model, and that and but it was models still. It's not like they hand drew a dragon silhouette or whatever. No, he's filming the actual little miniature dragon moving against a blue screen, and with the sky and stuff backdrop behind it, but it's still practical. In essence, it's still practical. And yeah, and so Dragon Slayer, we'll wrap it up. It's not a deep movie, but there's a reason why it's still being talked about in some circles today. You can see influences, you see all kinds of things in here that laid seeds for stuff that you would see elaborated on and done better later on.
Yeah,
And
very
you
much.
know, and so this is another one of those movies where we've talked about a few others in the past, to where, you know, the older movies where we're like, this one isn't great, but I could see where a filmmaker would watch this and go, oh damn, we can do that. Shit.
Yeah.
You know, and they go on to do it better. So, but yeah, it's an interesting film. It's all shot pretty much on location, which again, you miss location shots. They got so many, you know, movies now on volumes in on the volume and the stage and, you know, behind it. And here they shot everything pretty much on location. And you could tell.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Yeah.
So yeah, so Dragonslayer, film maybe on its own, meh, but a film that has a lot in it that's very cool. Even if all those components don't exactly lead up to a amazing film, it's still interesting one. And especially when you start to scratch beneath the surface and seeing who was involved and how they did the production, it's one of those where that's more fascinating in times than the actual movie itself. So.
I think that's the best way to sum it up. I mean, for me anyway, as I had hoped and as I had predicted at the beginning of this conversation, you haven't turned me around on Dragon Slayer. I still don't think it's a very good movie, but I'm much more excited talking and thinking about Dragon Slayer than I was. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it through an hour worth of conversation about this movie, but no, sure enough, we did, and I'm excited by it. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Yeah, and you know, you like what you like and whatnot, and even I recognize those things. But just being the D&D guy, just being that fantasy person, watching something like this come to life, especially, you know, on the scope that they had big dreams, big ideas with this film. Let's put it this way. And they shot for the fences, and it was still pretty impressive what they were able to accomplish production technical wise. So thank you so much for listening, folks. Hope you enjoyed our first episode of the new year. Hope everybody had a safe new year. Thank you for all the comments we got going on here. Most of these not necessarily dealing with us, but there was a debate about math. Yeah, more about math. And then someone said, someone talking about dinosaurs and eating some McDonald's with chicken nuggets and fries.
Oh,
So
but we can also get the best viewers on Streamboo, Mark. Did you know that?
we can get the best viewers on Stream Boo, which I always appreciate. Our random, always consistent Stream Boo post. So there you have it, folks. Appreciate you all. Now this is where I give my wonderful crew member a license to shill. So Ian, the floor is yours. I know you got some stuff to shill, so go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you. First of all, Happy New Year. I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. You can find me at kickseat.com and right here on YouTube. We do weekly movie reviews and live streams and interviews and all that good fun stuff. This Wednesday, back on a Wednesday schedule, doing a live stream of Park Chan-wook's latest film, No Other Choice, which I'm very excited to watch and discuss. I've heard nothing but amazing things. And it's a different kind of movie to kick off the new year. But yeah, that'll be 8 o'clock Central on Wednesday. So come hang out, and if you like it, come along for the ride. Oh, I'm also here on Sunday nights talking movies with Mark, who once again just amazes me. In the half decade we've been doing this show regularly, just opening me up to all sorts of even if they're not the greatest movies, in my opinion, they're the greatest conversations. They're wonderful.
Well, thank you. I am humbled by that. I appreciate that quite a bit. Yes, folks, check out Kicking the Seat. A lot of great stuff material there. A lot of interviews and everything. So always an honor to have you on our show, my friend. And Scotty D and Joe are with us in spirit. Hopefully, Joe will be able to join us next week, because next week will be our first Animation Nation special. Yes, every year now we've become the tradition of picking a yearly theme, and our yearly theme is animated films this year. And so we're going to be looking at The Black Cauldron, another Disney film That's a bit darker. Disney was odd place in the 80s, man. Early 80s, early to mid 80s. Disney was in an interesting place. Let's put it that way. So hope you join us next week for the Black Cauldron. Like, subscribe, bells and whistles and all that here. It is our 20th anniversary on YouTube. I got a lot of great stuff planned. I got a lot of great podcasts, and I got a first interview coming up as well, which you'll want to keep an eye out for coming up in the next week. And yeah, just do all that, and make sure you subscribe to Ian's stuff as well. And we'll just say until next time, a good night, everyone.